Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for joining me on day 6 of our 7-day Bhagavad Gita course being held right here on YouTube. If you haven't caught the previous classes, you can click the channel below and find day 1 of our course and start your process from there. So before we begin, I'd like to offer my obeisances unto the lotus feet of my beloved Guru Pada Padma, Nityalapa Vishnu Pada Paramhamsa Parivrajikacharya, Astotar Shishimad Bhakti Vedant Narayan Goswami Maharaj, and also same obeisances unto the lotus feet of Nityalapa Vishnu Pad, Astotar Shishimad Bhakti Vedant Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada, and all the Rupanuga Gaudiya Guru Varga. And I pray to their lotus feet that whatever we discuss today, whatever we learn today, may it simply be a repetition of their words, may it be in accordance with their desire, and may we learn the Bhagavad Gita as it is, as it was intended by Sri Krishna. I also would like to offer my pranams to all of you who are watching, all of the devotees, whether that be now or in the future. Yatha Yogi Pranam. So in our previous class, we discussed a very beautiful pastime of the Lord with his devotee Arjuna, and that is the displaying of the universal form or the Virat Roop to Arjuna. And we learned how beautiful and opulent and how magnanimous and magnificent that universal form is. And we learned that also it made Arjuna very fearful. In what way? That he felt that, oh my gosh, in the previous times, I thought you were just my friend. But now I understand you are the Supreme Lord himself. And therefore I have committed a grave error. Please forgive me, Lord. And then he requests very humbly that, please, Lord, show me that form which I know and love. And we also discussed that other devotees reacted very differently upon seeing the great opulence of the Supreme Lord. For example, Mother Yashoda, who is having the mood of parental relationship with the Lord, and how she thinks that no, he is not the Supreme Lord. He is my Lala, he is my son. And therefore, some evil eye must have come upon him when she sees the universe within his mouth. So different devotees react in different ways, and it depends on how much sweetness, how much madhurya they have within their relationship. Some see him as a great Supreme Lord, and some see him as just their son or their beloved. So in this way, Sri Krishna concludes chapter 12 very nicely, which is the path of Bhakti Yoga. Now, in chapter 13 onwards, chapters 13 through 17, Krishna describes Jnana Yoga. And what is Jnana Yoga? That is realization of the Supreme Lord through transcendental knowledge. Knowledge is the key word here. So, if you remember, and we'll do just a quick overview of the Bhagavad Gita again, is that in the beginning, we learned about Karma Yoga, right? And in Karma Yoga, this was chapters 1 through 6. What did we learn? We learned that Karma Yoga is the process of connecting with the Supreme Lord through action, right? Actions. And we learned that what goes around, right, comes around, like the cycle. So if you do something good, you get something good. And if you do something bad, you get something bad. So every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And so what did we understand from this? That one who is intelligent, one who understands that they are not the body, right, but they are the soul, understands that one should do actions that benefit the soul and not just the body. Because if we do something good that is related to the body, or if we do something bad that is related to the body, then we are experiencing reactions that keep us in the cycle of birth and death. So Krishna says, first, Arjuna, instead of thinking about yourself as the body, that you are the killer of your friends, that you are the fighter in this battle, instead understand that you are the soul. And the soul is eternal, and you must do actions which benefit your soul. So by giving up the results, by leaving the results of your actions, by becoming detached, then those reactions will not affect you. And you will slowly get out of the cycle of birth and death. And what other benefit is? The cleansing or purification of the heart. Because one starts to think, when they follow the process of karma yoga, that wait, I don't need to engage myself in so many things like collecting money or collecting activities or being famous or all these material objects that we're trying to collect and we're running after all day and all night, right? That wait, that is not the goal of life. I simply should execute my duty, give up the results, and then finally, for the yoga part, for the connection with the Lord, then I offer those results to Krishna. That is karma yoga, right? And so we can use an example that karma yoga is like the first step on the staircase. At first, we must learn the process of karma yoga, right? Just like I gave the example in the last class, that if you are a murderer, the lowest amongst all humans, a murderer, someone who has no care for another living entity, that if they are taught that, wait, by killing, you will get a reaction. By killing, you too will be killed. By, for example, eating meat, you too, me eat, they will eat you in the next life. Then the murderer will say, and he will think twice, he will say, wait, if I learn karma yoga, then I will not engage in these very terrible activities. So it cleanses the heart. It gives us the right path for duty, for doing the right things, right? We understand that through the process of karma yoga. Now, let's say you are not a murderer. I'm assuming that this is the case. Then you understand that, okay, there is right and there is wrong, and that I should not be attached to the results. So what does that give you? That gives you the stage of Gyan. A Gyan Yoga follower or a Gyani knows that karma and this cycle of birth and death is just temporary. That they shouldn't engage in all of these activities that bind us within this world. That is a Gyani, one who is intelligent. So he does not need to continue to practice this because it's automatic. Just like, for example, I do not need to instruct you, if you're on day 6, that you shouldn't commit murder, right? You shouldn't commit murder because that will give you a reaction. So now that you are above this step, then Krishna says, oh, since you have a clean heart, since you have a pure heart, since you understand what is right and wrong, since you understand your duty, then now connect with me through the path of knowledge. Learn about me. Learn about all of the different aspects of me. Learn about how this world works. Learn about how the process to get to the Supreme Lord works. And once we have that knowledge, then that gives us firm faith, that gives us Shakti, that gives us the proper logic and reasoning that we can advance. And then finally, the third step on the staircase is Bhakti. And what is Bhakti? That is loving devotional service. So one who knows what is right or wrong, one who learns about the Supreme Lord and the nature of this world and the nature of the Supreme Lord's abode, then he engages in the process of bhakti because he says, oh, my heart, my emotions, my sentiment, not just my brain with logic and reasoning, not just my mind with consciousness, but my heart, my sentiments are towards serving the Supreme Lord. I want to serve him because I love him, because I have a relationship with him, as we've learned in the previous classes, right? So I hope you understand that karma yoga leads to Gyan Yoga, and when one understands Gyan Yoga, it ultimately should, in the purest path, lead to Bhakti Yoga. So in these next few chapters, chapters 13 through 17, we will discuss this Gyan Yoga and how we can learn about the Supreme Lord and the way this world works, the way nature works, and answer so many questions that many of us have today. So in chapter 13, the first verse, Arjuna says, "O my dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature. I wish to know about Purush, the enjoyer. I wish to know about the field and the knower of the field and of knowledge and the end of knowledge. So this is a lengthy question, a lengthy verse, and I have written here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is because in one question, Arjuna asks 6 different things. He wants to know about nature. What is the nature of this world? What is the way in which nature works? What is Purush, the enjoyer? Purush means the Supreme Lord. Who is he? What is the field? And we will learn that in just a second. The knower of the field and of knowledge and the end or the conclusion of all knowledge, right? How much knowledge should we know? And once we reach that, what is the ultimate essence or conclusion? So here Krishna describes, and he answers in the next few verses, all of these different aspects. But he starts with the field. And he says the field is the body. The body. And he has already discussed this in chapters 2 and 3 of the Bhagavad Gita, but there's some more clarification given here. And the knower of the field is two. So one is that the body, which is the field in which we conduct our activities, right? We all do our activities through our body. But there's 2 people who should know that body, and that is the soul. So one who is intelligent, one who is a jnani, understands that I am not the body, I am the soul. And there's also one more person that understands the body, and that is known as the super soul, or also called Paramatma. Paramatma. And you may remember my beautiful drawing from previous classes, right, of our body. You can see he's very well proportioned and nicely balanced. But you may remember that this gross body, or the body in which we see, like that's made of skin, bones, and blood, and flesh, and all that, then inside of us, there's also a subtle body, right? There's a subtle body within us, and that subtle body, or Sukshma Sharir, is made up of our ego, mind, intelligence, emotions, sentiments, and so on. And then we have the Atma, right, which is the soul, which is who we are, Atma, the soul. And then also within us is the Paramatma, or the super soul. And Krishna is explaining here that in one of his aspects, he is the super soul. That is an expansion of Krishna. That is a manifestation of Krishna in every living entity. He is there in every atom as Paramatma. So Paramatma, they say God exists everywhere. And in one of those forms, in every living entity, he is Paramatma. So this Paramatma and us, the original soul, knows, one who is intelligent, knows that the body is simply the way in which we conduct activities. Then knowledge is understanding that I am not the body, I am not the body, and I am the soul. That is the beginning of knowledge. And Krishna describes so many other knowledges, so many other types of knowledge, which we will discuss today. And then finally, Krishna will describe the end or the conclusion of all knowledge. And by learning about nature and Purush, or the supreme enjoyer, the supreme Lord, then one can understand the conclusion or the end of all knowledge. Now, I understand this is a little bit complicated, so I just request that you please stick with me, listen carefully on the next few verses, and we will try to break each of these down in a simplistic manner. But this first question is the start of the chapter, so I felt it was necessary for us to understand what are these 6 questions or 6 things that Arjuna wants to know about. So in verse 13 of chapter 13, Krishna says, I shall now explain the knowable, knowing with which you will taste the eternal. This is beginningless, and it is subordinate to me. It is called Brahman, the spirit, and it lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. So Krishna is now describing one of his aspects known as Brahman. Brahman. Okay? And that is the known as the spirit. And Krishna is explaining to Arjuna, because this is the chapters on Jnana Yoga, that if you understand this Brahman, then you will have a taste or a small taste of the eternal. And that this Brahman is subordinate to me. Now, if you're brand new to the Bhagavad Gita, please don't mistake Brahma, the god of creation or the demigod of creation, with Brahman, which is completely different. Okay, so let's not confuse the words, because many people understand that, oh, now he's talking about Lord Brahma. No, Lord Brahma is a completely different personality, and Brahman is an aspect of the Lord himself. So this picture here describes what Brahman is, who Krishna is, and who is Paramatma. So this picture is divided into 3 parts. I'm going to draw a line here. I'm going to draw a line here, and then there's the picture there. So these different aspects of the Lord are described within the Bhagavad Gita. So first there is the yogi, right? The Jnana Yogi. He understands, and he tries to understand the Lord in what way? That the Lord is an energy. He's an energy. He is everywhere. He is everywhere. And he's omnipresent, omnipotent. He has everything within him, and he's everywhere. Some people may call him like the light. God is the light. Or God is the universe. Or God is the force. Or God is something where it's not physical, but present everywhere in the entire world. So this is one aspect of the understanding of God. And Krishna says, yes, I am this. I am also this. And the name of this is called Brahman. Brahman. And as this Brahman aspect of me, I pervade the entire world with my energy. And there is no form. Just like we say God is everywhere, God is great, God is the light, then in this way, this person who understands the form of Brahman understands this aspect. Then there is the advanced Jnana Yogi who understands, wait, God is not only present everywhere, he's not just a light, but he's also within each and every one of us as the super soul or Param Atma. And this is the second aspect of the Lord. And you can see in the yogi's heart here, he understands that in every living entity, the Supreme Lord comes and rests within us, right? Within us. And so he meditates upon that Supreme Lord and begins to try to realize that within himself, the Supreme Lord sits. And then finally, the personal aspect, right? The personal aspect of the Lord is described as him having a very beautiful form, that he conducts activities. He has unlimited forms. He has unlimited beautiful activities. He has different names. And he has so many qualities. For example, he's not only great, but he's sweet. He plays the flute. He exchanges love with his devotees, and so on, as we've described before. So one is the personal aspect of the Lord. One is the localized aspect, or the aspect within each and every living entity. And then this is the all-pervading, right? The all-pervading or omnipresent form of the Lord. And Krishna is describing in this chapter, chapter 13, that from this we should get to this, and from this we should finally get to this. Now I want to give you a very simple example to try to understand this, because this concept is sometimes difficult, and I understand that. So let's use an example of a king. So imagine there's a king, and he's a very loved and respected king within his kingdom. So this king, let's say his name is Raj, which means king, right? So King Raj, he has so many different activities that he does. For example, he rules the kingdom, he meets with his ministers, he meets with the people of the kingdom, and he does so many activities. But not only that, he also spends time with his queen, with his children, with his family members, and his friends. So amongst each and every one of these different people or different activities, the king physically is present to conduct that. Now the king also has soldiers, right? The king also has soldiers that execute the will of the king, right? They go around, they protect the citizens, they watch the citizens, make sure that they are following the law, and so on and so forth. So imagine if this king was present in every single home. In what form would he be present in every single form? As one of his soldiers, right? So the king will be King Raj, right? Then he has the soldiers. And then finally, within the kingdom is the rule of law. The rule of law. The rule of law is the all-pervading rule book that is present within society. Every member of society, for example, knows their country's laws. They know that, oh, one should not steal, one should not hurt another, one should not, avoid taxes, things like that, right? And by following these rules, essentially you are following the king or honoring the king in his word. So these three different aspects of the king, one is the individual king, one is his soldiers that is present in every home, and then one is the aspect of the rule of law, which is present all among society and conducts the basis for which society operates. So similarly, the king is the personal form of the Lord. He is the supreme Lord in his personal form. Then he is present in every living being, just as the soldiers may be present in every home as representations of the king. And then finally, in the form of Brahman, he pervades the entire universe, just like the rule of law within a kingdom pervades the entire kingdom. Now, in the process of karma, jnana, and bhakti yoga, bhaktas, or the topmost amongst all yogis, as declared by Krishna in chapter 12, understand that, wait, should I serve the rule of law? Yes, you should follow the rules. You should understand that the Lord is present everywhere. Should I also serve his soldiers? Yes, absolutely. By respecting and honoring, let's say we fed the soldiers, then this ultimately pleases the king. But if we really want to please the king, if we have an intense desire to serve the king, we would go and serve him directly. For example, if he liked pizza, then we would go and make pizza and serve him in his kingdom, in his physical form. We would not feed the pizza to the soldiers. That may please the king somewhat, but to please the king directly, we would want to go directly to that form. So similarly, as we gradually understand the aspects of God, then we should ultimately understand his topmost original form, which is his personal form as Sri Krishna. So we understand that God has three aspects, but ultimately this should lead us to his personal form. So this is a beautiful picture of his personal form, for example. So the bhaktas, or the persons of following bhakti yoga, will meditate and chant and sing the glories of this personal form. Now in chapters 13, verse 14, Krishna says, everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes and faces, and he hears everything. In this way, the super soul exists. And so the Lord is describing that he has so many hands and legs, so many eyes and faces, and so many ears. He hears every single thing. And why is that the case? Well, because the Lord can do the impossible. The Lord is capable of doing everything. There is nothing in which he cannot do. And we cannot simply control him or put him in any sort of box that our material mind may think of. That, oh, he is like this and he is not like this. No, there's no limit to God. He is like that and he is like that. And if he's not like that, he'll do the complete opposite and show you that also, right? So this is the amazing part of the Lord, that he has all these different aspects because he wants to accept the entire world's offerings to him. Now there's one key point here, is that Krishna is saying that in the super soul form of his, he has hands and legs, eyes and faces, and ears everywhere. And you can see in this picture as super soul that if there's a super soul in every single living entity, then aren't there unlimited hands, unlimited legs, unlimited ears? Because he's present in every single atom of the universe. So this statement is completely true, that in this form of Paramatma, he has unlimited hands and legs, etc. Now what's funny is in the next verse, then he says this: the super soul is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses. He's unattached, although he's the maintainer of all living entities. He transcends the modes of material nature, and at the same time, he's the master of all modes of material nature. So here you can see many opposites. In the previous verse, he says he has so many senses. He has eyes, he has ears, he has hands and legs by which he moves and walks. And then here it says he's without senses. What does this mean? So we must understand the internal meaning of the verses. That the Lord, he has unlimited senses, but he does not have material senses like you and I. His senses are transcendental, are completely pure. So he has all the senses and he has unlimited forms of those, but none of them are material. And he's unattached, although he's the maintainer. Now, the Lord is trying to describe to Arjuna and make us understand that he is everything and also detached from everything. Just like, for example, a mother. A mother is the maintainer of a child, right? But in this world, when one maintains something, whether it be their child, whether it be their business, whether it be their home, career, car, whatever, then we become completely attached. But the Lord's nature is that he remains unattached even though he maintains everything. And we'll learn with the modes of material nature that the modes of material nature were created by him, and he's the master of all of them, but he's not controlled by them. So the Lord is describing all of his wonderful qualities, that he is involved in everything. He is the cause of all causes, but he is not attached to anything. He's completely free from those kinds of attachments because he is completely transcendental. And there is no material aspect, and we should not try to compare ourselves with him, that he behaves and acts like us. Because if we maintain, or if we're a master, then we are completely attached. Then later, Krishna says, nature is said to be the cause of all material activities and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. So here Krishna is describing nature, the nature of this world, the material nature of this world. That the nature is the cause of all activities and effects. For example, the modes of material nature are goodness, passion, and ignorance. And we'll discuss this later in today's class. That these three aspects of nature are always causing us to do so many activities. And when we're tied up in this nature, then we become the cause of our suffering and enjoyment in the material world. That one should not blame nature, right? Many of us sometimes say, oh, well, nature made it happen this way. Or if God wants, or if nature wants, then something will happen, right? But no, we're not to blame nature. Nature just simply provides the platform by which we conduct our activities. And if we do good, we get good. We do bad, we get bad. But ultimately, the cause of the suffering and enjoyments is us. Our activities, our choices, our expectations are the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. Nature is just the platform, kind of like the rule book that the persons must follow. So if you decide to go against the rule book, that's up to you, but be prepared for the suffering. And if you follow the rule book, then you may get some enjoyment in this material world. So nature is said to be the cause and the effect, just like a rule book is the cause if you follow the rules. And we lay out the foundation, we lay out the rules, and ultimately if you follow them or not, that's up to you. But be prepared to have the effect which nature will also provide. And of course, we have seen this picture before, but our own activities cause us to be in this unlimited cycle of birth and death. Unlimited cycle of birth and death, where we are suffering and we are enjoying, suffering and enjoying, just like a cycle that never ends. So Krishna is saying that don't blame my rule book. Don't blame nature because it is completely fair. Instead, understand that, oh, this nature is the cause and effect of everything. I must learn to understand and follow that rule book. I must learn to understand how it works so that I can get out of this cycle of suffering and enjoyment or birth and death. Then in chapter 13, verse 22, Krishna says, the living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil amongst various species. So Krishna says that when we engage in this material world, in my material nature, that is the platform or the foundation of this universe, then we also must understand that we will be subject to its good and evil, or its cause and effects, or happiness and distress. So if we continue to associate with material nature, right? If we continue to dive deeper and deeper into the material world, that, oh, if I just do a little bit more, I'll get this. If I just give a little bit more money, then I'll be happy. If I just do a little bit more of this, or if I just defeat this person or become famous or this, I'll be more happy. But the more we dive deeper, the more we meet with good and evil and then get a body according to our karma. So the living entity in material nature just enjoys and sits in the waves of the ocean like a person who does not know how to swim, gets cast away in the ocean. What controls him? The waves, because he has not figured out how to relieve himself or get out of that situation. But Krishna says if you have gyan, if you understand this path of knowledge, then you'll understand how this ocean works and you will learn how to swim, right? Well, if we learn how to swim, then we can get ourselves out of drowning. So that's what Krishna is saying. And then finally, what is the first aspect of those that know how to swim? Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death, right? So what a beautiful verse. Krishna is saying, wait, and we've discussed this before, that knowledge is not absolutely required to attain the Supreme. Just like the example given of the Brahman who reads the Bhagavad Gita upside down. He has no intelligence in the sense that he's not educated enough to even read. But because he has the capability of hearing, he hears from his spiritual master, he sees the picture of Krishna serving his devotee, then he is also able to transcend the path of birth and death. So Krishna says that Gyan is helpful, but it is not the first step. That we must hear about him, Shravanam. We must hear about him from who? From the authorities, ones who understand the Bhagavad Gita, ones who understand the scriptures intended for the way they were to be, right? So if we want to swim in that ocean where we get stuck in the waves of the ocean, then first we must learn how to hear about how to swim. So Krishna is describing this also. And then towards the end of the chapter, in verse 29, one who sees the supersoul in every living being and equal everywhere does not degrade himself by his mind. Thus he approaches the transcendental destination. So Krishna is now describing that if you understand this Paramatma aspect, this supersoul aspect in every living being, right? And you will see that everything is equal because the Lord is present in every living being, then he does not get degraded and he approaches the transcendental destination. So remember the staircase, right? He's slowly approaching that topmost transcendental destination. And this picture right here shows a Gyan Yogi, right? A Gyan Yogi. What does he understand? That in every living being, whether he be the horse, whether he be the mother and father, whether he be the dog, whether he be the chicken or the plants or the animals or the tiger or anywhere, that in each and every living entity, the super soul or Paramatma is present. So he does not look at anyone as above or below another. He sees them all as equal. And that is why he does not engage in any process like meat eating or any of those sort of things. He does not engage in discrimination that this person is better, this person is worse. He understands that the Lord is present. The Lord is present in all of them. So they are all worthy of being treated equally. It's not saying that he treats the high person the same as the low person. It says that he understands that they are equal and that one should treat them properly and one should treat the other person properly too. It is not that you treat everyone equally. That's not possible. But it is important to understand that you don't mistreat anyone else simply because they are higher or lower form of body. He understands that no, inside each and every body there is a Paramatma. So now in chapter 14, Lord Krishna is now going to explain the three modes of material nature. And those three modes, as mentioned previously, are goodness, passion, and ignorance. And in Sanskrit also known as sattva, rajas, and tamas. And he describes that these three modes of material nature are pervading throughout the entire material universe and throughout the entire material world. And that every living entity within this universe is subject to these three modes. Whether they be the lowest amongst living entities or even the demigods and the higher planets, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that these three modes of material nature are always affecting us. So what are these three modes and how do we describe them? Let's discuss, because Krishna describes them in various parts of the Bhagavad Gita. So let's start with goodness. Goodness is known as sattva, or a person in the mode of goodness is sattvic. And Krishna describes that the mode of goodness is someone who has so many wonderful qualities. For example, they are truthful or honest, right? They are generally with a happy disposal. They're happy and they're pleasurable to deal with. They are very loving and caring. They are serving members of society. And they have a great, nice disposition to them. All of the qualities that we glorify in society are found in someone in the mode of goodness. And Krishna also describes of the different types of foods that they eat. That a person in the mode of goodness looks for foods that are nutritious and healthy, that are nourishing, satisfying. He says they are juicy, palatable, fresh, and clean. And so one can understand that Krishna is describing a very sattvic or a very pure diet is very important for someone who wants to develop the mode of goodness. Because we don't just eat food for the vitamins and minerals that it contains that nourish this body, but that there's consciousness within the food also, in the way that it is produced, in the way that it is cooked, in the way that it is eaten. So for example, fresh fruits and vegetables, perhaps a dal or lentils or other types of cooking that is fresh, clean, nutritious, and not dependent on just taste or satisfaction of the tongue, but also that is good for one's body and good for one's consciousness. Then Krishna describes that the mode of goodness also, that a person in the mode of goodness has three aspects to them. And that is that they have charity, austerity, and sacrifice. We'll separate that here. Charity, austerity, and sacrifice. And a person in the mode of goodness, what kind of charity does he do? He does charity to the right person, at the right time, and to the right place. That a person who is charitable gives to good causes which benefit society and benefit the souls of all the living entities in the world. He does not give any charity that results in selfishness, that results in trying to get something back for him. He does not expect any result. So he gives charity because it is the right thing to do and because he does the right duties, right? He considers it a matter of duty. And what kind of austerity does he do? Or tap? That is, he does austerity for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. He does, for example, chanting of the name, doing yajna sacrifice, serving, all these kinds of things. That is a person in the mode of goodness. And then finally, what type of sacrifice does he do? He makes sacrifice that is for the pleasure of the Lord and does not expect anything in return. So in these three aspects, charity, austerity, sacrifice, and his overall lifestyle and qualities results in a higher level of happiness. That a person in the mode of goodness generally is a happier person in this material world. But Krishna says there is one fault that a person in the mode of goodness can have. And what is that fault? Is that one can develop an ego. One can develop an ego and also become conscious of his position. A person in the mode of goodness who understands that they are generally happier in life, that they have many good qualities in society, that they eat nutritious food, thereby maintaining their body very nicely, and they do all these good deeds, sometimes gets an ego, thinking that, oh, I am great. I do everything right. I am very happy, and I want to remain in this material world because it's a good life. So this is the fault of the person in the mode of goodness. Because again, these modes of material nature are affecting every single living entity from the top of the demigods to the lowest of the all living entities. So this is the fault. Now, a person in the mode of passion or rajas, what is he? He's a person that is very passionate, of course, derived from the name. He's very passionate about achieving goals. So he wants to achieve all sorts of goals that lead to his benefit. He's really pushed, and his mindset is all about how do I benefit? And he's willing to work extremely hard to achieve that. He wants to work very hard. Someone who's passionate about music, about their career, or about any sort of aspect in life is willing to work really hard to get what they want. But everything that he does is for his own benefit. It's all about him. It's all about me, right? Everything is about me, me, me. And so when he does charity, which he does, he says, oh, how can it benefit me? That if I give something, I should definitely get something back. Or if I give something, then maybe they should announce my name. They should give me some fame in society, and others will recognize how good I am. And when he does austerity, he does it only for the benefit of himself. So he works hard. He does tup, because by work, it means that he's doing some austerity. He's sacrificing enjoyment in order to get some benefit later. And then finally, when he sacrifices, as mentioned, he only wants to sacrifice when it results in his own benefit. So the person that is passionate enjoys the types of foods, Krishna says, that are spicy, sour, bitter, right? And tasty. Because again, he's looking for the pleasure of his own tongue. Me, me, me. So foods that are very tasty and very spicy, sour, bitter, etc., all about flavor and not so much about nutrition, is a food that is under the mode of passion or rajas. And what is the fault or the problem experienced by someone in the mode of passion? It is that they are distressed. They remain distressed throughout their life. Why? Because of their passion, they are never satisfied. For example, they achieve one goal, then they want the next. They have some money, they want some more. They have fame, they want to be the most famous. They want to be the most beautiful. And they're always remaining in distress because they're working so hard, and they're getting some benefits, but they're never satisfied. That is the nature of a person in the mode of passion. Now, ignorance or tamas, a tamasic person, is one who is lazy, who is untruthful, who is hurtful to other living entities or other humans, and so many other negative qualities, right? And so when he does charity, austerity, and sacrifice, what does he do? A person who is in the mode of ignorance gives wrong charity, gives charity to the wrong people, gives charity to the wrong place and at the wrong time. For example, he supports organizations or groups that hurt others, right? Now you may think, wait, that's not charity. Yeah, absolutely. It's not called charity. But in the sense of giving, he only wants to give when it hurts others. And what kind of austerity does he do? Well, he does no austerity because he's lazy. He does not do any austerity for the pleasure of the Lord or for even his own pleasure. If anything, he only does austerity to hurt others. And when he wants to work, when he finally feels that he should do something in society or do something with his life, he does it to hurt other living entities, right? Or hurt himself. For example, a terrorist may be in the mode of ignorance. But we also get sometimes these tendencies. We sometimes, even though we may be truthful, we may be passionate and work hard, sometimes we're also lazy. So Krishna says that these modes of material nature, it's not that a person falls under one and stays only 100% in the mode of goodness. They may be 90% in the mode of goodness, but 5% and 5% in the mode of passion and ignorance. Like sometimes we get lazy. Or sometimes we're really passionate about something, but not so passionate and lazy about something else. Or we're truthful and honest, but every once in a while we like to eat foods that are very tasty and make the pleasure of our tongue. So a person in the mode of ignorance, he eats stale. Krishna describes stale, putrid, right? Unclean, non-sattvic or non-pure, impure foods like meat. And he also likes to take substances or foods that are hurtful, not to maybe to others or to himself. So example, meat is hurtful. We hurt another living entity for that. But also drugs and alcohol can hurt our own body. So this is the mode of an ignorant person. And what is the problem in the mode of ignorance? Is that they ultimately result in the cycle of birth and death. And not only that, but they do not get a human body in the next birth. Because of all these negative actions that they're doing, the result is that in their next life, they're born with a body such as of a bear or a tiger or some other animal of a lower species in life. So that is the problem. So in all of these, whether it be goodness, passion, and ignorance, even though it may appear that we want to be in the mode of goodness, which yes, amongst the three we do, Krishna is saying still one must learn to overcome and be above all three. And he says that one who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends or goes above the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. So when one is doing the good deeds, a person who is very intelligent, who is understanding the modes of material nature, right? Krishna is trying to explain that if we understand these modes, then we can uplift ourselves and follow the practice of full devotional service or bhakti, right? That by recognizing that even if one has all these wonderful qualities, we must be very conscious not to get a big ego. And we must also be conscious that this material world is temporary and we have to transcend it. We have to go above it. So a person who is practicing bhakti yoga with the knowledge of jnana and with the knowledge of karma yoga, then he can transcend these modes of material nature and come to the level of Brahman. What is the level of Brahman? Who is very, very intelligent, one who has all complete knowledge. And Krishna says, this is the end of all knowledge. When one understands that bhakti yoga, full devotional service, uplifts one from all of these modes of material nature, this is the conclusion of all knowledge. Because what does a bhakt do? He may have all these wonderful qualities, the devotee of the Lord, but he doesn't get an ego because he understands that these qualities are to be used in the service of Krishna, the service of the Lord, not for one's own pleasure, one's own benefit, and certainly not to hurt another living entity. And there is no point in having an ego because the material position, material qualities, material wealth, material aspects of life are all temporary. He understands that everything is coming from the mercy of the Lord, and that's how he accepts, because he is surrendered to the Lord completely in full devotional service. So when we practice this bhakti yoga, then we ultimately, automatically achieve the state above the three modes of material nature. Otherwise, we'll simply be tied up in the three different modes of sattvic, sattva, rajas, and tamas. An example we can give here is that let's say you don't know how to swim, right? You don't know how to swim. Well, you get, somehow you go to the beach and then you get caught in the ocean. You enter the ocean where it's in your waist length, then it becomes to your chest, and somehow the waves take you away. So by practicing bhakti, because we don't know how to swim, we don't know how to get out of these modes of material nature, we're sometimes affected by all of them, then by practicing bhakti, Krishna says, that we will ultimately transcend them. Then later in chapter 16, Krishna describes the three gates to hell. He says there are three gates leading to hell: lust, anger, and greed. And every sane man should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul. So lust, anger, and greed are the three crocodiles, the three lions that come and attack us all the time. And in this picture, we can see here the different aspects which are constantly affecting us. So I'm going to zoom here. And imagine we are this person right here, right? And you can see here these three chains that are constantly binding us in this world. And these three chains are greed, right? Anger, and lust. These three chains are greed, anger, and lust. Lust. And what is this picture trying to show us? That these three aspects within our life are always constantly binding us. Even though we want to become free. For example, none of us want to be angry. None of us want to be greedy. And certainly we don't want to be lusty. But somehow or another, it ends up happening. For example, we may try so hard that today I won't be angry. Today I won't be greedy. But then when some situation comes up or some person that makes us angry, immediately the anger sprouts up. Or the greed for more sprouts up. Or our lust for acquiring material objects or material relationships, for enjoying, then creeps up. So these three are always constantly attacking us. And until we become free from these chains, we're not going to be able to progress and become higher in spiritual life. And different things attack us. For example, false prestige, right? Where we think we are the greatest. And when we think we are the greatest, this ultimately leads to greed. We want more, right? Or when we have pride, what happens? We think we are the best. We think we are the best. So therefore, we should get to enjoy everything. We have lust. And when we have attachment to material objects, then this ultimately leads to anger. Krishna says, Dhyato Vishaya Pumsas Sangateshu Pujayate Sangat Sanjayate Kam Kama Krodha Abhijayate. That by being attached to material objects, it ultimately results in anger. Why? Because when somehow we may lose them, or when they do not serve us properly, then we become angry. So we're always constantly being attacked by this because of our ignorance. So what does Krishna recommend? He recommends tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upatekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. And we've said this verse many times in different classes, that in order to get out of this cycle, this stages, this lust, anger, greed, we must first accept a spiritual master, right? We must first accept a spiritual master. Why? Because that spiritual master is above these stairs. He knows how to cross them. He knows how to get them out. For example, if we are tied in a jail with 3 chains, are we able to get out ourselves? No. Only until someone comes with a sword and chops those chains off of us can we become free. Well, Krishna says, who is that person? That person is the spiritual master. And you can see in this picture, the spiritual master says, don't look down here. Look up here, towards the Supreme Lord, towards Shri Krishna. And that will automatically make you free from this. Then when we accept the spiritual master or guru, then we learn to study the scriptures. We learn to do austerity for the pleasure of the Lord. We learn to control our senses. And finally, we get gyan or spiritual knowledge, which leads us to practice bhakti to obtain the Supreme Lord. Right? So by making an attempt to try to conquer these different things, we are not able to do it ourselves. However, with the assistance, with the association, with the mercy of a spiritual master, of a guru, and of the devotees, then we get inspiration to leave all these things. We cannot do it with our own self, with our own will, with our own power. We must get the help of others. And there are numerous stories throughout the Bhagavatam, throughout all of our scriptures. All of the Vedic scriptures say, and no one has ever achieved the realization on their own. Every single person, every single example, what does it say? That you must take shelter of a guru. You must associate with those who are also further along this path to help us uplift ourselves. So what is the intelligent prayer? What is the person who is very intelligent, who is jnani? The most intelligent, most worthy prayer. Our acharyas describe that the most intelligent and worthy prayer is that we should not pray for anything else, but the association of the devotees of the Lord who love the Lord in a pure devotional sense, who are pure, who have a relationship, a sambandh with Him, who are have a relationship that's based on love, that is based on service, that is based on bhakti. When we associate and when we receive the association of those kinds of devotees, then we can further progress. So someone who is intelligent, they will not ask, oh, give me this, oh, give me that, or even, Lord, give me you. They will say, no, give me the association of your bhaktas, the association of your devotees. So this should be our constant prayer, that Lord, please give me the opportunity to serve those that are higher than me. That way I can progress on this path of bhakti, on this path of spiritual life. Because if we get this, then automatically we will get here. It's just a matter of time. So one should constantly have this prayer in one's heart. And by that, automatically, lust, anger, greed, false prestige, pride, attachment, everything, ignorance, envy, all of these will go away within our heart. And all of the wonderful qualities without the ego will come within us. So this will conclude today's day 6 of our Bhagavad Gita course. And next we will discuss chapters 16, 17, and 18. And of course 18 being the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita. And we will learn what is the final recommendation, what is the final instruction of Sri Krishna to Arjuna, to us, and how should we come away from this. And his essence of all the Bhagavad Gita is contained in chapter 18. So please join us next time on day 7 of the Bhagavad Gita course. Now, if I have made any mistake, I request that you please forgive me. And if anything good I have said in this class, it is only because I'm repeating the words of Gurudev and the Acharyas. So I request that you please be merciful, please bless me so that I may continue teaching this class and finally concluding on day 7. So please, I request the number one rule in bhakti is always remember Krishna, never forget him. So please let us always chant the names of Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And may the Lord please give us those that association of those rasika, or full of flavor, full of mellows, full of ras, devotion towards the Supreme Lord. Hare Krishna.